In the 1980s and early 1990s, Milwaukee seemed calm. Yet inside one apartment, a nightmare was unfolding that no one could imagine. It would later shock the entire world. The name Jeffrey Dahmer would become one of history's darkest cases. Outwardly shy and awkward, he appeared harmless, but inside lurked something monstrous. He hunted his victims from bars, streets, and public places. Most were young men, lonely or vulnerable, easily lured by promises of drinks or money. Once inside his apartment, the door locked. What began then was an endless nightmare. Dahmer would drug them, torture them, and eventually kill them. But horror truly began after death. He dismembered bodies, kept some parts in the freezer, and even consumed certain organs. The stench grew unbearable. Neighbors complained repeatedly, yet police dismissed it each time without serious inspection, missing the horror within. One chilling discovery was his photographs. Dahmer documented killings, dismemberment, and even the preservation of body parts in disturbing detail. These photos later served as horrifying evidence in court, leaving an everlasting nightmare in the minds of investigators who saw them. In 1991, a turning point came. One victim escaped his clutches, still wearing handcuffs, and ran desperately through the streets to police officers. Police entered Dahmer's apartment. What they saw would haunt them forever. A freezer filled with human remains, skulls hidden in a closet. Plates and containers held fragments of human flesh. The apartment was truly an apartment of horror, and news spread rapidly worldwide. Media quickly labeled him the monster of Milwaukee. The public was horrified, unable to fathom the evil that had lived among them. In court, Dahmer showed a cold calmness, no sign of regret. He confessed openly to the brutal murders of 17 innocent victims. His explanation was chilling. He wanted to keep his victims with him forever. This obsession drove him into cannibalism. The world recoiled at these revelations. The apartment, the photographs, the freezer, each detail painted a picture of pure evil. In 1994, while imprisoned, Dahmer met his end. Fellow inmate Christopher Scarver struck him with an iron bar, killing him instantly. Some believed this was justice. Others felt it was simply the inevitable fate of a monster who had hidden too long in darkness. The case of Jeffrey Dahmer became a chilling reminder that sometimes monsters wear human masks and live quietly among us. Behind an innocent smile may hide a terror darker than any fiction, proving truth can be more horrifying than the scariest films. This is the true story of Milwaukee's monster, Jeffrey Dahmer, a man whose crimes will forever haunt history as one of its darkest nightmares. Glenda Cleveland, Dahmer's neighbor, often heard strange noises and smelled foul odors from his apartment. She called police multiple times, but they ignored her warnings. Late at night, loud thuds and screams echoed through the building. Neighbors banged on walls, but Dahmer calmly told them it was just his freezer breaking down. Despite constant complaints, officers dismissed the issues as trivial. They even joked about the smell, saying Dahmer must just be cooking spoiled meat. Glenda once spotted a young boy running from Dahmer's apartment, terrified and half-naked. She called the police immediately, begging them to intervene. The boy was Konarak Synthesomphone, only 14 years old. He was drugged and confused, struggling to speak, while Dahmer chased after him in the street. Neighbors tried to protect Konarak, wrapping him in a blanket and standing between him and Dahmer. They insisted something was terribly wrong. When police arrived, Dahmer lied, claiming Konarak was his 19-year-old boyfriend. He said the boy had simply drunk too much and needed rest. Despite neighbors protesting, police escorted Konarak back to Dahmer's apartment. They ignored Glenda's desperate cries that the boy was in danger. That night, Dahmer murdered Konarak. It became one of the most infamous examples of police negligence in American history. The neighbors were devastated, realizing their warnings had been ignored. The building remained filled with the stench of death, but authorities stayed silent. As weeks passed, Dahmer's killings escalated. He lured more men into his apartment, promising drinks, photos, and money. then drugged them. His apartment became a chamber of horrors. Acid barrels filled the small rooms, bones stacked in drawers, and Polaroids captured the victim's final moments. Dahmer worked methodically, experimenting with bodies, keeping skulls as trophies, and preserving hearts and organs in his freezer. Neighbors still complained of foul stenches and constant noise. They began fearing the building itself was cursed, haunted by something inhuman. Glenda's frustration grew. She called police again, demanding they search Dahmer's apartment. Once more, they dismissed her concerns as paranoia. The stench thickened until even visitors gagged upon entering the building. Still, Dahmer claimed it was spoiled meat and dead fish from a broken fridge. Dahmer's obsession deepened. He began drilling holes into victims' skulls, injecting acid in attempts to create obedient zombies. None survived these grotesque experiments. Each victim died in agony, their remains hidden in jars, boxes, or dissolved into chemical sludge. By summer 1991, Dahmer had killed 17 men. The apartment reeked of death, yet authorities still failed to act decisively. The neighbors felt trapped in a nightmare. They lived beside a serial killer, their warnings silenced, as horror grew behind Dahmer's locked door. The police finally forced open the door. The stench inside was overwhelming, like something rotten had been left to decay for weeks, making the officers gag as they entered. Their flashlights revealed a horror that no one could prepare for. Human skulls neatly arranged in a closet, glinting under the dim light. Jars filled with preserved organs lined the shelves. The sight was disturbing, as the grotesque trophies stared back at them from inside the glass. One corner of the room held a large blue barrel, bubbling ominously, with a vile stench wafting from it, suggesting something far worse inside. The refrigerator door creaked open, revealing severed heads, their glassy eyes staring into nothingness. The officers were paralyzed by the horror they had uncovered. Outside, neighbors were gathered in shock. Some cried, others yelled in disbelief, as the horrific truth of Dahmer's crime spread through the building. Glenda Cleveland, standing among the crowd, was finally vindicated. Her repeated warnings were now proven true as the horror she had sensed was exposed. Media cameras flashed as the police began removing evidence bags filled with bones and body parts. The scene was surreal as the truth slowly came to light. Dahmer sat quietly in handcuffs, showing no emotion. His face was cold, blank, almost detached, like he didn't fully grasp the magnitude of his crimes. The atmosphere in the apartment was thick with dread. The silence was broken only by gasps and cries of horror from those who witnessed the monstrosity that had been hidden for so long.